Hello!
Hello AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Sigmar.
In this video we're going to give you a little overview of the Legion Imperialis rules as read by Pete.
Yeah, so I have very quickly skimmed through this and pulled out the nuggets of instilled ingots of wisdom, which we're then going to relate to everybody
You've
out
played a lot
there.
more Epic in the past than I have. So
It's like 20, 30 years ago as well.
But
I played some.
I played almost. I think I played one game on the floor, trying to run a load of figures and never played again.
Yeah. That's just happening in most games, to be honest.
So complex, simple.
They do look relatively simple. I am very aware.
They always get you with that. That's how they always get you.
I am very aware that when you go through, there is about 7 or 8 pages of special rules, like precise and graviton pulse and bombing run and burrowing and bypass. That's when you go on the M25, but then after, anyway,
around the buildings.
Various things, void shields. There's lots of potentially specials that may never come up, but also might be a bit like Necromunda, where you're playing, you're like, oh, this gun's got 6 different special keywords.
It's not just Necromunda, all of their games.
This is true. Yeah. This is true. So there is that aspect to it. So it does look, apart from that, quite simple on the mechanics front. It even employs a WeGo system.
Oh, well, I know you do like a WeGo system.
I think it's the only way really to play a game properly, because anything else to me just feels very dull.
And for those of you who aren't aware what a WeGo system is,
so that's where we go at the same time. So in a turn, you alternate your turn. You alternate your actions, your movement, your attack, all that kind of thing. Whereas in an I go, you go system, which is how GW used to do things with 40k, it's I'm going to have all of my movement and I'm going to do all my shooting.
I get very confused with the two things, because I appreciate why we go is that, but I go, you go also could be like I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go.
Yeah.
But I go, you go is where you basically do everything.
It should be your turn, my turn, or our turn.
Yes,
there you go. See, new system.
Much
better. Got to implement that.
So this is an hour turn system.
It is an hour turn system. Yes. So you have the tokens where you place for each unit, much like you used to do in Aeronautica Imperialis. Place them in secret, so your opponent doesn't see what you're doing, and then you reveal them all. And then depending on what commands you've given, what units, affects the order of which they activate.
That's interesting, because that they use in X-Wing, which Aeronautica is kind of an X-Wing clone.
Yep.
And it's interesting that they've gravitated it towards this, because this is quite different to X-Wing in look and feel, at least, because it's obviously more ploddy, literally.
Yeah, great big Titans and stuff.
But the dynamic aeroplanes, but
there are airplanes in it.
Yes,
you can have the airplanes, but not all just airplanes.
I know you do like how they work.
I do like them. We'll come on to that in a minute.
Yeah. So, any problems you've immediately identified, Pete?
Well, one thing we noticed when we went through the unboxing in our other video, which you can check out, there's no terrain.
Yeah, it's quite unusual now for a GW game not to have any terrain.
Yeah, some really specific to the setting sort of stuff.
Do you remember the original Titanicus with the little polystyrene?
I love those.
They were so good.
Fantastic.
They sold me on Titanicus. I bought it because of those.
It was quite funny that you had all these Titans and Space Marines and whatever else running around, and they were just these perfectly formed skyscrapers just dotted around the place, and none of them ever got destroyed.
But it didn't matter, because they looked beautiful.
It did look, and this, unfortunately, there is no terrain, so unless you happen to have loads of 6mm terrain lying around, which most of us aren't going
Quite
to.
a lot of Lego lying around.
Yeah, it's pretty much lots of blocks of Lego, just squares of Lego and towers of Lego are going to be made, I think, to play this game.
You get a load of grey Lego. It might look all right.
Yeah. You get it printed on the side with get some transfers or something. You just do that and make it yourself. But it is a shame that there isn't anything in here for that, because it's like it's immediately going to suspend your sort of like fantasy of the game a little bit doing that until you can get something. It's going to be probably quite expensive as well, I would expect.
Yeah, they do sell some, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it they've made. It'll be interesting to see whether it can keep up the demand.
Yeah, Sunny sells out or something like that. But I think you're probably going to have to either, unless they're going to bring a whole bigger range of stuff, you're either going to have to go to third parties or you're going to have to make something yourself and
print your own, maybe. I guess it's at least easily in printable territory with it being small.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not like you've got to make a whole actual 40k scale of a thing.
Yeah. So going back to the rules.
Yep.
Movement is fairly freeform, is it?
Yeah, movement's pretty easy. Everything has its own movement specified up front in their stats, and it's
Is it inches?
It is in inches, so it's not in centimetres or anything like that. And it is all pretty straightforward, so there's none of this kind of like, you can add D6 for this or anything like that, unless there's lots of special rules, which there might be, but the base rules is just, they move this far, and if you give them this kind of command, they can move like twice as far or 3 times as far, things like which can lead foot troops to move faster than tanks, or at least as fast as tanks, because whereas a tank moves twice as fast, if you give it like an advance order, your troops might move 3 times as fast.
Okay.
So, but your tank might move 8 inches as opposed to your troops 5 inches. So it might be 15 and 16 or something. So I don't think it's going to be a slow game. You're not going to be sitting there moving models 2 inches at a time on your turn. They're going to get across
pretty
the board.
fast. I guess what you want, engage as fast as possible.
Exactly. And the other good thing is that if you've got a Titan, it's not suddenly blocked by loads of troops just standing on the floor. You can just move straight over top of them, which kind of makes sense in a game of this scale.
Without any casualties.
Just move over and just ignore them. The assumption is they just sort of
get out of the way.
Get the heck out of the way before they get trod on.
So once you've moved, shooting?
Shooting's actually very simple in this game. You roll a hit and then they roll to save, and anything that gets through does damage, and that's pretty much it. It can get a little bit more complex with some of the bigger things like your Titans when they've got void shields and stuff like that, because there's some things where it's like if they have a shield on them and the weapon attacking them has a damage of less than a certain amount, it just like does no damage.
To the Titans.
So small arms fire often is probably not going to be a threat to a Titan, which makes sense in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of kerfuffle about that in various iterations of 40k when suddenly they could do it or then they couldn't anymore.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. People get very exercised about that, but it does make sense. One thing we did notice when we unboxed is that you do get the bright orange templates in the box.
Yes, yeah.
Which
templates.
I don't think have any place in a modern game.
I don't like templates. I saw them and I was like, oh, come on, GW, really? Templates? No one likes templates. The only people that do like templates are min-maxers who like to abuse the rules.
Yeah,
I'm joking, but
it's true. I kind of feel like with templates, it ought to be like you pick a unit and you have to put it in the centre of that unit or something.
Yeah,
so you can't do that.
But it's like, what's the centre, and if they're all strung out in a line, or if there's like...
Well, you'd have to pick a square, I guess.
It's just horrible. I don't like templates at all in any shape or form.
I'm not a fan of them. Shooting will inevitably lead us to arguments over cover and line of sight. How have they decided to slice that?
Not great. Again, in GW's sort of way of approaching things, they've gone about it, in my mind, really...
Is it better or worse than Kill Team?
Better or worse? I think it's probably as bad, because it's a bit simpler, and it's like if a model is 25% behind scenery, but there's 6 mil. Like, how are you gonna just... To me, it should have just been a case of if the line you draw from your unit to their unit crosses any terrain, then they're in cover.
Yeah, are there any definitions of like terrain? I mean, like, is it an undulating hill terrain? Is it like a tree?
It's literally like percentage of visibility.
Right,
so to me, it should have just been like, if your line of sight crosses terrain, they're in cover, and just leave it at that. But sadly not. They've given this random percentage, and you've then got to work out, well, what is that?
25% of a 6 mil figure as well is not.
Yeah, it's like barely even 3 mil.
1.25 mil.
So it's not great. I could see me, if I was playing this game, immediately simplifying that and just saying it's going through some terrain, they're in cover.
So if you've closed down the gap, then you've got some good old
hand-to-hand combat, nutting people in the face. Yeah, the combat system is a little bit more involved, but it's like MESBG or Middle-earth Strategy Battle Games. So you have your base of fighters and their base of fighters, and you both roll 2 dice, and whoever gets highest wins. And some fighters will get bonuses to that. So you'll have, if it's a Titan, they'll get like +12 to their dice roll. Or a regular troopery type person won't get anything added to it. So
okay, so basically a guardsman can't like stand on the foot of a Titan and take them out.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason for that is because you pair the bases up, you roll the dice, you work out who wins, and the winner just does a wound to the opponent. There's no rolls to wound, rolls to save. Just a wound. It's just, I've done a wound, I beat you, you take a damage.
Okay.
That's enough to take out most bases of troops and really threaten a tank. A Titan only has about like 4 to 8 wounds, depending on the kind of size of Titan you've gone for.
You can get into a wound. You can wound them. They can be taken down.
Yeah.
So it's like you need to really swamp them.
Exactly, because you have the same thing in the Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game system, that if you have like 2 of your guys against one other person, you get the second person attacking gets a bonus dice.
Right.
And so on. But again, a Titan's going to have +12 base to that, so they're going to kill the first 3 or 4 bases probably without even trying before any of them come close. But if you manage to let your Titan get swamped by loads and loads and loads of troops, the inevitability is they're going to start taking damage.
I wonder how that will manifest on the battlefield, whether you just sort of try and take the Titans down with missile fire, or whether you do try and get involved in combat
I think the game's going to turn into a Titans versus Titans and troops and tanks running for objectives kind of thing because, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but troops are more effective at holding objectives than a Titan.
Interesting. So that's how they balanced it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this game, I guess, grew out of Titanicus and Aeronautica.
Yep.
And you said earlier that you can have planes in this game.
You can have all of the Imperial planes, at least, all the Space Marine and Guard planes will be in this version of the game.
No walk planes yet, sadly.
No, sadly there's not going to be, because it's all like in that, in the Horus Heresy period, so there's not going to be any Necrons, no Orcs, no Eldar, which is a bit of a shame. But the flyers are fantastic, and the way they sort of come in, they don't deploy at the start of the game, but on your turn you can pick a spot on your table edge and you put them down, and then they shoot across the board where their movement is like 28 inches or something, and then they make that move, and then they can shoot people and stuff, and at the end of the turn they disappear. You take them off again, assuming they haven't been destroyed by ground fire and stuff.
Okay.
And then beginning of next turn they can come on another one of your deployment zone edges. So they keep sort of like strafing around and shooting around, which feels really thematic to me, and it means that they're there for the attacking stuff, but they're not going to be holding objectives or anything like that, which would make sense.
Just come in and strafe.
Exactly.
And fly off again.
Yeah, which makes sense. You're not going to send like a rocket plane to go and try and hold an ammo dump in the middle of a desert, would you? Like, we've got it! We haven't got it! We've got it! It's gone again!
Titans?
So Titans, it is good to see the god machines of the Emperor, obviously. They're what it's all about, really. The Titans and the big tanks and stuff like that. And they are all but immune to small fire, as we've said, which means they can mostly stomp along and ignore people and lighter tanks for the most part.
Right, okay.
The way the combat works as well, they're almost immune to close combat from troops as well. And it's also nice to see that they've kept the rules for Titans the same as tanks and the same as the planes and the troops and stuff like that. They've got the same stat line. Obviously they've got war wounds and they've got special rules that give them shields and things to be able to ignore incoming damage from small arms fire. But it's the same. You haven't got this whole different damage table to work out. I mean, I remember in the early version of Epic you had literally like a picture with all these squares and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and you had to work out where was the damage and is that damage catastrophic and does that cause a chain reaction which blows up the reactor, which in its way was fun. But also these days that's just a massive headache for rules and stuff like that. So it's nice to see that it's just, whether you're looking at a tank or a Titan or a troop, they've all got the same stat line. It's much easier to work out what you've got to roll. Yeah.
So how do you win a game of Legion Imperialis?
So in there are rules for a mission, and you've got objectives that you have to hold. The way you hold objectives is obviously your troops have, a bit like in 40k, they've got certain scores as to how many points they're worth around objective. Troops and things have more points than tanks and Titans, which kind of makes sense. It's very hard to hold a building with a Titan because the Titan's outside.
Well, if they've got to get the plans, they've got to get out.
Exactly. So
run down the ladder and get them all.
So it's more. It forces you to have to balance your army.
Take troops. You can't just have Titans. You can't just leave your troops right at the back.
Exactly. So you've got to think about that aspect of it as well. I think it's always going to come down quite a large extent to blowing the opponent to pieces, which is any good old 40k game's going to be like that. It
frustrates me slightly, that does. Sometimes it just says it is better just to pulverise your opponent, but I wonder whether that's because we don't play very much.
Probably.
So we haven't kind of got used to that objective holding.
Could be. But it is nice to see that there is that large difference between you really want to get your troops onto objectives rather than the Titans, because the Titans aren't going to be as good at holding them. So if you are, trying to contest it, you can't just dump a Titan over there and go, well, I've got that now. You can't stop me because I've got a Titan. You could swarm it with troops and go, you're going to have to do something about that. Yeah. One of my biggest issues with the game is the terminology, some of the very random words, at least feel to me, very random words. There's nothing in there that says Space Marine or Imperial Guardsman or anything like that. It's all
that in the unboxing.
Yes,
they've kind of GWI'd it.
They've really on acid, on speed, on amphetamines. They've really gone over the top with some of the words. And it's just what is that? Is that a leader? Is that just a trooper? I can't really even tell.
Okay. I'm not really a fan of that, actually, I have to say. Yeah.
And the way that you build the force, you have these battle detachment organisation chart things, like you would see in the old World War I or World War II history books, you'd see all these diagrams, stuff like it's a bit like that. And again, I just looked and I was like, oh, I'm already getting a headache. And
that's the sort of thing that I loved, I still do love on one level. But when I was younger, I loved it, but now I just don't have time for that rubbish.
No. And again, for on that level of like military history and stuff, it was fascinating to look at. But when I'm trying to play a game of something,
I think it comes back to this is not a beginner casual game.
This really isn't.
Immerse yourself in it, and that kind of is true of the whole Horus Heresy gamut of games, and even the books. You've really got to immerse yourself in it if you want to really enjoy it, get the most out of it.
You really have got to.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got your detachment diagrams and you've deciphered it.
Yeah.
And then what happens then?
So once you've got your detachment, you know you have to have a detachment of this and a detachment of that. You can buy them, and that aspect of it at least is fairly easy, because it's just like you buy a detachment and that gives you 4 bases and these are their stats. There's not a lot in the way of upgrading them with special weapons, although sometimes you can say, okay, I've got my commander's detachment and I'm going to add some units of Ogrins to that, or some of these units or some of those, and they'll have slightly different rules. So from that aspect it can get a little bit...
And do units mostly come with the same weapons, or do you have to choose the loadout each time?
For most of the troops they're the same. So your Devastator squad, they've all got like rocket launchers, whether you they're absolutely devastating. If your Assault Marines, they're all going to have the same stuff.
They're assaulting.
They're assaulting. But your tanks can have different weapons on them. They're not tanking.
No.
So your main turrets on your tanks versus the side pintle-mounted weapons or the other stuff, they could have multiple different weapons.
Yes, because you can build those multiple different ways.
Exactly. Now, I don't think I'm ever going to play a game where I've stuck a 3mm sized gun onto a tank, and that's it, and that's what that is forever. I can see a lot of people basically going, oh, that unit's all got battle cannons and las cannons, or that unit's all got this weapon and las cannons or whatever and stuff like that. And I think if anybody ever goes, that's not a las cannon, that's an auto cannon, you're like, don't care.
If I've got my reading glasses on, it's a las cannon. If I take them off, it's an auto cannon.
Yeah. So from that aspect, there's a little bit of mucking around. It's not quite as simple as 40k in AOS.
Right.
But it's not as bad as old 40k and stuff like that was.
It's not like 4.5 points for an auto cannon.
No, it's nothing like that. Nothing that bad. But yeah,
do you know roughly what the points values are?
I haven't worked that side out. I need to work that bit out, and that kind of brings me on to another thing that I'm not a fan of in this game.
Well, that was a lucky question.
Well, it's a lucky question, and that's the fact that there is no getting started guide in this one. There's no, okay, stick these models together and then set them up like this, and we'll walk you through how it works, how to move, how to shoot, what things do. And I think in recent versions of like Underworlds and stuff like that, they've been really good at coming up with that. I suppose
it comes down to who this is for, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I guess they don't think anybody is going to start playing their Warhammer journey. If you have the hobby trumpet, it's for people who are well down the trumpet.
Yeah, a bit like the Horus Heresy box.
Because I was really quite looking forward to that Horus Heresy box, and then it just wasn't for me because I'm a beginner and I didn't really understand what on earth was going on.
Yeah, and it's just it's odd that they're building something this immense for such a small audience of their worldwide capacity, it feels, but that is the way they've gone about it, I think.
Yeah. I don't know how many extra sets it's going to be. They have advertised some extra ones they're doing for new units and things. I'm guessing it's going to be fully supported, but I suppose it's got a comparatively small model range as well, because it's only got
Space Marines and Guard, or whatever they've called in this.
Solaris.
Yeah, they've so instead of Imperial Guardsmen, they're called like the Auxilia something or others. Auxilia Las Rifle Tersico. Like, can't you just call them Guardsmen, basically? It's a shame that they haven't got that easy user experience in here. There's even a bit where when you're going through it, it gives you every single Space Marine chapter and what their specials are. When you're going through it though, you've got your sort of like your formations and stuff like that. It does say like one of these, you can have these are optional, these are compulsory.
You can't see what they are.
but there's little diagrams that tell you can have
transports,
either a Vanguard or a light armor unit or HQ or support or those kind of things. Yeah. But then there's like no mention of Titans in that, so it's like, well, how do Titans work? And you go through, and then there'll be a bit in there. It'll just literally just say something like Legio something or other. Here you go. Knight's Household Lance, compulsory detachments, Knight. Like, well, But does that mean I can just make an entire army out of loads and loads of individual, and these are called strategic asset formations. And there's probably something in here that explains how many strategic asset formations you can take. But I've already lost interest in trying to work that out.
We haven't read it in any great detail. You read the rules, but not the building.
Yeah. And that to me is one of the most disappointing things. It's like, I picked this up, I was actually really interested in it. And I started to read through the rules, and I thought, this is all pretty straightforward stuff. It doesn't look too complex. And then I got to the army building section near the back. I was like, I just don't even know how to build an army.
No.
Because
it looks amazing, and the models are amazing, and they're quite fun to paint. They're not the easiest things to paint. I think you've got to change your mindset a little bit to. But you can with sort of 3 or 4 colours, you can get quite a striking effects. Which is quite nice, but of course you've got no terrain, so that's immediately
one problem.
Makes it like for experienced gamers or expert gamers.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem to there's no hand holding.
There's none at all whatsoever.
It's just how tough things were in 31st.
Exactly. Back in March, we had to walk uphill both ways to terror. It looks amazing, but it's of a level of complexity for me that I've just kind of already realised I'm probably never going to play this.
No, I mean, I think when we were younger,
when
we had like whole summer holidays to play games, and we might have played this game.
And I'm not even
it would have been a bit awkward because you'd have been about 5 and I'd have been 15. Which,
one of us would have got more frowns than the other. I don't even know how long a game of this will actually even take. It might be a very quick game to play, but I can't even work out how to build an army to be able to play it.
36 points, so they're kind of small numbers of points.
Yes. Yeah, and that's like, so for an auxiliary, that's not even something you get in the box.
Okay.
And that's another problem. You're like, do I get that in the box? Is that in the box? The Auxiliary Las Rifle Tersico, which is an infantry unit, you get 4, attachment size 4, which is 4 bases, and that's 30 points. Okay. So you're probably, I mean, there's Titans in here as well.
Well, no, you can get extra things. It says there.
Yes, you can buy a few extra things.
Buy with flamers.
So you can basically increase the size by 2. So if you buy it, you're basically buying 2 extra bases for 12 points, that kind of thing.
I see.
But yeah, you've also got things like the Velatari and the Ogrim Charonite, stuff like. Why can't they call them ogres?
Velatari is like a. I don't know what that is.
And like you've got a knight, and a knight is 250 points.
Okay. So that gives you
and a knight obviously is a Warhound Titan. There should be Titans in this somewhere, so we should have a Warhound Titan. So a Reaver Titan, which is bigger than a Warhound, is 415 points. Warhound Hunting Pack, 330 points.
So it says Titan 5. What does that mean?
That's to do with the size of the unit. So that's to do with like the scale of the unit. And like a scale 5 model can move over a scale 1 model, that kind of thing. So your troopers are scale 1 and stuff like that.
It's a bit like the scenery in Marble Crisis.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly like that.
Desperately clutching at straws.
Yes. But then you've got like this whole table, which you can't quite see. But there's like...
can't see it at all.
You can't see it at all, yeah. But there's like 12 or 13 different weapons that your Titan can have, because you can give them different things. It's got the whole list of stuff you can give them there.
So you can have 2 from the list. Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. I love it, and I love the way it looks, and I'd actually love to paint some of these big models, even though I probably wouldn't do a particularly good job. But I'd love to do that. I just can't ever see myself playing it, unfortunately. Like I say, it is a game for people who live, breathe, eat, sleep Warhammer.
Yeah. It will look fantastic on the table when people have it all set up with the Titans stomping along and these hordes of sea of troops running around, them getting decimated by rockets launched from Titan stuff. It's going to look fantastic. Yeah, I love the idea of the planes just shooting across. But for me, whilst the rules look fairly simple, just the building of the army alone is probably enough to kill off my desire.
Yeah. We need simple. We need like 3 fires, some hexes to put them on.
Yeah.
And away you go.
Oh, they should have put hexes in it as well, but that's a whole different video.
So we've rambled on and on about Legion Imperialis. We probably spent longer talking about it than we were playing it. But thank you to GW for sending us the book. Do look out on Instagram for a few of our pictures and stuff, because we have painted some stuff up. And maybe you'll see a game, but it probably won't be us playing it.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
So we'll see you soon.